My name is Leo. I'm 32 years old, and I never imagined I'd see my own sister. Claire grabbed my 7-year-old son, Ben, by the arm hard enough to leave bruises at our annual summer barbecue. What was worse was my father's approving nod, his comment that the boy needed to learn some respect, while my mother quickly agreed. They felt untouchable in their judgment, but they'd forgotten about the high-definition camera my cousin was using to film a family time capsule, recording every single second. Before I walk you through how I used that footage to expose the truth, let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe if you believe a child's spirit deserves to be protected. Growing up in the Harrison household meant knowing your role. I was the sensitive one, the quiet artist who could never quite measure up, while my older sister Claire was the brilliant, ambitious, golden child who never failed. The dynamic was cemented long before I understood what it meant. I remember in 8th grade, I spent a month building a detailed architectural model for a history project. The night before it was due, Claire, then a sophomore in high school, accidentally knocked it off the table while telling me my design was structurally unsound. When I stood there, in tears, amidst the wreckage, my father put his arm around her. "That's my girl," he said, always spotting the weakness, a real killer instinct. I got a failing grade. She got praised. That was our childhood in a nutshell. My father, Richard, a high-pressure sales executive, had a clear vision for his children. Claire was his masterpiece, head of the debate team, class president, and most importantly, a perfect reflection of our father's ruthless drive. I was more like my mother, Margaret, in my temperament, but she was a loyal lieutenant in my father's army, enforcing the family hierarchy with disappointed sighs. "Leo just doesn't have the fire in his belly," my father would tell his friends at the country club. Not like our Claire. By the time I was 17, I had built a fortress around myself. I learned to be agreeable and invisible at home, burying myself in my sketchbooks and counting down the days to college. When I met Sarah in my sophomore year, it felt like I could finally breathe. She was funny, sharp, and she loved me for who I was, not for who my family wanted me to be. We married when I was 23, too young in retrospect, but I was desperate to build a life on my own terms. My parents came to our small wedding, their compliments feeling like carefully worded critiques of our choices. Claire, already a rising star at a consulting firm, gave a toast that was a masterclass in condescension. "I never thought my little brother would find a woman brave enough to take him on," she said to a few uncomfortable chuckles. "Best of luck, Sarah. You're going to need it." For a few years, I thought I'd really escaped. We had a small house in a quiet neighborhood, and I built a steady career as a freelance graphic designer. We weren't rich, but we were a team. When I became a father to Ben at 26, it felt like my life's purpose had clicked into place. Ben arrived on a bright summer morning, a bundle of calm curiosity with my eyes and his mother's smile. As I held him, I swore he would always be celebrated for his gentle soul. He would never be made to feel that his worth was conditional. The first real fractures in my marriage showed when Ben was 4. Sarah grew restless, frustrated by what she called my lack of ambition. "There's a senior designer position open at that big ad agency," she said one night. "It's more money, more prestige. Why won't you even apply?" "Because it's 60 hours a week, Sarah," I tried to explain. "I'd never see Ben. What we have is good." She looked at me with genuine pity. "Is this all you want, Leo? A quiet little life?" "I want more." We tried therapy, but we wanted fundamentally different things. By the time Ben was 5, we were divorced. I didn't tell my family the real reasons. I just said we grew apart, knowing they would find a way to make it my fault. My father still did. "A man is supposed to provide a certain lifestyle, Leo," he said, shaking his head. "You can't blame her for wanting more." Single fatherhood was a challenge. My design work covered our bills, but there was little left over. I sometimes had to swallow my pride and ask my parents for a loan to cover a sudden car repair or a medical expense for Ben. The money always came with a lecture about financial planning and the unstable nature of freelance work. All the while, Claire's life was a showcase of success. She became the youngest partner at her firm, married a wealthy architect named Mark, and lived in a stunning minimalist house featured in a design magazine. They didn't have kids. We're focusing on our legacy, Claire would say. But my parents still presented them as the ideal. If you had just been a little more like your sister, my father would often say, you might have something to show for your life. Despite all of it, I wanted Ben to know his family. So when the invitation for the annual Harrison summer barbecue arrived, I decided we would go. It had been 2 years. Are you sure that's a good idea? My best friend Alex asked. They treat you like the family disappointment. They're still his grandparents, I argued, though a familiar knot tightened in my stomach. And Ben loves my cousin's kids. I can handle one afternoon for his sake. Ben was thrilled. At 7, he was a thoughtful, observant boy with a deep passion for drawing complex worlds filled with spaceships and imaginary creatures. His quiet confidence was something I treasured and fiercely protected. Will Aunt Claire be there? He asked while we got ready. And can I show everyone my new rocket drawing? Of course, buddy, I promised, pushing down the anxiety in my chest. I didn't mention that my cousin, David, would be there filming for one of his family time capsule projects. My father had encouraged it, eager to document the family's success, particularly Claire's. As we drove to my parents' house, I repeated a mantra in my head. It's just one day. I'm not that kid anymore. I can protect Ben. Looking back, I was so naive. You can't shield a child from a storm by walking them directly into its path. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. My parents' house, a large, modern structure of glass and white stone, always felt more like a corporate headquarters than a home. As I parked my reliable but aging station wagon between Claire's Tesla and my father's Porsche, I felt that old, familiar feeling of being out of place. We're here, Ben said, already unbuckling. His excitement was pure, untainted by the complex currents that made my own body tense. Can I go find my cousins? Let's say hello first, I said, managing a smile. The back patio was buzzing. My father was holding court by the grill, talking about the stock market. My mother directed the catering staff, her outfit immaculate. Claire and her husband Mark were the center of another group. My sister laughing at something her husband said, a glass of expensive wine in her hand. Leo, you made it, Claire called out, her tone making it sound like a surprise. And little Ben. Still drawing all the time, I hope. Ben, suddenly shy, clutched my hand. Hello, Aunt Claire. Mark gave me a polite, if distant, nod. He always seemed vaguely uncomfortable at these gatherings, an outsider who married in, but never quite fit. Good to see you, Leo. I saw my cousin David setting up his camera on a tripod, aiming for a wide shot of the party. He gave me a wave, trying to capture the magic. I asked, your dad wants to get some good footage of Claire talking about her latest promotion, he said quietly. I've even got a lapel mic on your dad to get clean audio for posterity. The afternoon moved on with its predictable script. My father asked about Claire's work portfolio. My mother asked me if my car was still making that unfortunate noise. I noticed how Ben's cousins, older and more boisterous, quickly dominated the games, leaving Ben on the periphery. He didn't seem to mind, content to sit on the grass with his sketchbook, meticulously finishing his latest masterpiece. The trouble started about an hour later. The adults had gathered around the outdoor dining table. Claire was telling a story about a difficult negotiation she had won. Her voice was confident and loud. I was watching Ben, who had just finished his drawing. His face was lit with pride. He got up and ran over to the table, holding up his sketchbook. Aunt Claire, look what I made. It's the starship from my book. Claire stopped mid-sentence, her face tightening with annoyance. Ben, the adults are talking. But look, he insisted gently, his voice full of excitement. I added extra escape pods, right here. He pointed, his finger almost touching her silk blouse. That's when it happened. Before I could even stand up, Claire's hand shot out. She didn't slap him, she did something almost worse. She snatched the drawing from his hand, crumpled it into a tight ball, and threw it on the grass. What did I just say? She hissed, her voice low and venomous. You do not interrupt. You need to learn some basic respect. The conversations around the table died. Ben stared at the crumpled paper, his masterpiece, and his face crumpled too. A silent, heartbreaking sob escaped him. Time froze. Good. My father's voice boomed, breaking the silence. He's too sensitive. Needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around him. My mother's nervous laugh followed. Honestly, Leo, you're so soft on him. Claire's right. I finally moved, my body shaking with a rage I hadn't felt in years. I scooped up Ben, who buried his face in my shoulder, his small body trembling. What is wrong with you? I said to Claire, my voice dangerously quiet. He's a 7-year-old boy. He was proud of his drawing. He's old enough to learn manners, she shot back, taking a sip of her wine. Something you clearly never taught him. Now he's a crybaby, just like his father. My father nodded in agreement. Leo, don't overreact. A little discipline is what the boy needs. The faces around me were a blur of discomfort, silent agreement, and, in my cousin David's case, pale shock. The camera, the red light was still on. The lapel mic on my father's shirt was still active. They had no idea. They had just performed for an audience. We're done, I said, turning to leave. We are so done here. Running away from your problems again, Leo. Claire called after me. It's what you do best. I didn't look back. As I packed Ben into the car, David hurried over. He didn't say a word, just pressed the camera's memory card into my hand. It's all on there, he whispered. The video and the audio from the mic is perfect. I'm so sorry, Leo. The drive home was a blur of contained fury and heartbreak. Ben had stopped crying and was now frighteningly quiet in his car seat, staring out the window. Hey buddy, I said gently, what happened back there? That was not your fault, okay? You did nothing wrong. Your drawing was amazing. He just nodded, not looking at me. That silence scared me more than his tears. I drove straight to Alex's apartment. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and immediately ushered us inside. What happened? He asked. While Ben sat on the couch watching cartoons, I told Alex everything. Then, we plugged the memory card into his laptop. Watching it again was sickening. The casual cruelty, the dismissiveness, the sound of the paper crumpling, my father's laugh, it was all there, in high definition. This is assault, man, Alex said, his face grim. What she did, what they said, this is evidence. The next day, I took Ben to his pediatrician, who documented the faint, finger-shaped bruises already forming on his arm. She referred me to a child psychologist. This isn't just about a crumpled drawing, Leo, she told me kindly. It's a violation of his trust and safety by people who should protect him. My conversation with the psychologist was a wake-up call. She explained how this kind of humiliation could crush a child's creative spirit and self-worth. That night, after Ben was asleep, I started researching. Claire's company had a detailed code of conduct on their website, full of language about integrity and respect. She also sat on the board of a prestigious youth mentorship program called Future Leaders. The hypocrisy was staggering. I created a new email address and began drafting a message. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about accountability. It was about ensuring Claire could never do this to another child who might not have a parent to defend them. I sent the video clip trimmed to the essential, damning 2 minutes, to the head of human resources at Claire's firm, the entire board of the Future Leaders program, and the headmaster of the elite private school. Her husband's children from a previous marriage attended. I wrote a short, factual letter explaining the context, identified myself, and stated that I felt ethically obligated to share it. The explosion was immediate. Within 24 hours, Claire called me, her voice a mix of fury and panic. What did you do? They're calling an emergency board meeting. They're talking about suspending me. You need to retract this. Tell them it was a family misunderstanding. My parents followed, my father leaving a voicemail dripping with menace about betraying the family, while my mother texted pleas for me to think about what this will do to us. I blocked them all. A few days later, I got an unexpected call from Mark, Claire's husband. He asked to meet for coffee. He looked exhausted. I saw the video, he said, not meeting my eyes. Claire tried to frame it as you being hysterical, but the camera doesn't lie. I've seen her temper, but never like that, never with a child. He sighed, stirring his coffee. Our house. It's a beautiful museum, but it's cold. She gets this look when things don't go her way. The way she looked at Ben, I've seen it directed at me when I question a business decision or forget to tell the staff to stock her specific brand of sparkling water. He looked up at me, his face full of a sorrow I hadn't expected. What? You did. Maybe it was the only way to make her see. I don't know if our marriage can survive this, but maybe it shouldn't. The consequences mounted. Claire was placed on indefinite administrative leave. The Future Leaders Program issued a public statement announcing her immediate resignation from their board to focus on personal matters. The story began to leak through the tight-knit community of the city's elite, and the narrative my parents tried to spin of the unstable, jealous brother fell apart against the stark reality of the video. The breaking point came when my grandmother, Evelyn, the family matriarch, summoned us all to her house. She was 88, sharp as a tack, and the only person my father was truly afraid of. I went alone, leaving Ben with Alex. The living room was thick with tension. My parents and Claire were on one side, me on the other, with various aunts and uncles scattered around like nervous spectators. I've seen the video, Evelyn announced, silencing my father before he could speak. She turned her steely gaze on Claire. You humiliated a child for the crime of being excited. You took his joy and you crushed it. I have never been more ashamed. She then looked at my father. And you, Richard, you laughed. You encouraged it. You did to him what your own father did to you. A cycle of cruelty I thought had died with him. I see now I was wrong. My father paled. The room was deathly quiet. This isn't about punishment, I said, finding my voice. It's about the fact that my son, for a week after this happened, stopped drawing. He kept his sketchbook in his closet. He asked me if being quiet was the only way to be good. Your actions have consequences that go far beyond a bruised arm or a suspension from work. 6 months later, our lives are different. Claire was eventually let go from her firm. She and Mark are in the process of a divorce. She's in intensive therapy, forced for the first time in her life to confront the person she is without the shield of success and family protection. My relationship with my parents is fractured, perhaps permanently. We are in family counseling, but their apologies still sound more like regret for being caught than remorse for the act itself. But on the other side of that fire, something new grew. My relationship with Ben is stronger than ever. The confidence I found in defending him has seeped into my work, and I recently landed my biggest client ever, finally giving us financial security. Most importantly, Ben is drawing again. His bedroom walls are covered with new, vibrant creations. A few weeks ago, we hosted a small art gallery opening in our apartment for our chosen family, Alex, David, my grandmother, and a few other relatives who chose to stand with us. Ben, wearing a little bow tie, proudly explained each of his drawings to the guests. As he stood there, his voice clear and confident, describing the engine of a massive, colorful starship, I knew I had made the right choice. My sister's cruelty was meant to silence him, to make him small. Instead, it forced me to become the father he deserved, a man strong enough to break a toxic cycle, no matter the cost. My brother-in-law's camera captured a moment of abuse, but it ended up documenting the beginning of our liberation.